مشاهدينا في كل مكان اهلا بيكم. احنا معاكم النهارده داخل سفاره مملكه السويد. لقائنا اليوم مع سعاده السفير داغ يولين دامفيلد سفير مملكه السويد لدى جمهوريه مصر العربيه. في لقاء اليوم هنتحدث عن مملكه السويد والشعب السويدي، وايضا سنتحدث عن المحطات الدبلوماسيه الخاصه بسعاده السفير. فابقوا معنا وتابعونا. معاكم النهارده في ضيافه سعاده السفير داغ يولين دامفيلد سفير مملكه السويد لدى جمهوريه مصر العربيه. Your Excellency, please allow me first to thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me, and it's a great honor.
Your Excellency, we would like to start with you by talking about your diplomatic career before coming to Egypt. Can you please tell us more about it?
Well, I've been a diplomat for 35 years, since 1990. And I started out working with European affairs. I was part of the team that negotiated Europe's entry into the European Union in 1995. From 1990 to 1995, we became members in 1995. Once the negotiations phase was over, I didn't join the diplomatic service to be working in Europe, so I wanted out of Europe. So, and the quickest way to get out of Europe was to apply for Tehran. There was not that many diplomats volunteered to go to Iran at that time. So did I, and I got my job in Tehran, and then I stayed in the Middle East for a very long time, with postings in Iran 3 years, Israel, Palestine, working a lot. Then I went back. I went to Afghanistan. I worked 5 years in Pakistan and Afghanistan, then went back to Stockholm, worked at the Middle East department.
You already worked in a very hot places in the Middle East in this time. Hot spots.
No, but this is hot. What you define as hot spot, I define as spots with the need for diplomatic action.
Exactly.
In Afghanistan during the Taliban time, you needed diplomats to engage and talk, and Sweden was the biggest donor to Afghanistan at the time. Then came 9/11, then came the war. And during the war, yes, it was a bit hot. But diplomacy still has, at the end of the day, diplomacy has to enter the picture. You cannot solve issues with diplomatic or military action alone. You need diplomats to talk. And for military action to work, you need to have diplomatic knowledge. You need to be able to read, understand your environment.
Yes.
I think one of the reasons why it ended so badly for countries that mostly came from Europe, North America, in Afghanistan, was that we didn't understand the environment. We did not understand the environment, and made, especially the Americans, I'm sorry to say, mistake after mistake after mistake, which played into the hands of the Taliban, who could make a comeback.
So, Your Excellency, most of your career was in the Middle East.
The Middle East, North Africa, and if you include Afghanistan, Pakistan, in the Middle East, yes. Then I served as I was Sweden's ambassador to Saudi Arabia for 5 years. Then I was in charge of Yemen, Oman, and Kuwait. And after that, I served 5 years as Sweden's ambassador to Malaysia.
Can I ask about, is there any difference between the Arab countries in the Middle East? Did you feel something like this, or you feel they are mostly, or they have a common things together?
There are many common things, but I think there is a huge difference between the Khalij, Gulf countries, and for example, Egypt. And if you compare Egypt with Morocco, there are similarities, but it's two very different cultures. And Syria, between Syria and Egypt, maybe less in the old days. Now Syria is a destroyed country, so we don't know. But I'd say that Syria is an ancient place. You feel the ancienity when you are in Syria. Egypt is an even more ancient place, and you feel this, especially coming from a country like Sweden, which is historically a very young country. We are maybe 1,500 years old. You feel the weight of ancienity when you visit the pharaonic sites. 7,000 years of history, 5,000 years of history. You feel very humbled.
So every country in the Middle East have its own, let's say, atmosphere and history, and people, of course. This all depend on
Yemen. Yemen is also a very ancient country. You call Yemen the cradle of Arab civilization. I always thought it was Egypt. No, what they say is Yemen. Yemen is the cradle of Arab civilization, and you feel that when you're in Yemen. Yemen today is the poorest of all countries. It's a country that is destroyed by war, internal strife. During the time of Ali Abdullah Saleh, it was already a lot of small fights going on between different tribes. It reminds me a lot of Afghanistan, the tribal infighting, the code of honor, the Pashtunkhwa. It's very based on principles, the view of women. Women must stay at home. You don't see many women in the streets in Sana'a or in Kandahar or Kabul. So very, very many parallels, but also differences. So Egypt is a very modern country. It's a highly developed urban society, cosmopolitan. It's which
we will sure talk about the reflection of all this experience that you gain in the Middle East on Egypt and let's say the history of the relation between Egypt and Sweden. But please allow me first to complete about talking about Sweden. I would like to ask Your Excellency about the geographic nature of Sweden and the nature of Sweden, beauty nature of Sweden. Can you please describe it for us and for all the viewers that are watching you now?
Absolutely. Sweden is the opposite of Egypt in nearly every sense of the word. It's a very green country, summertime, or wintertime, a very white country. Sweden is an Arctic country, so it's much colder than Egypt. It's 6 months of the year we're covered by snow or ice, and which makes skiing a very popular pastime when not working. It's also one forgets that Sweden is a very young country, as I said, and 150 years ago, Sweden was a very poor country, much poorer than Egypt is today. So poor that where people were starving, people left Sweden in masses and went to the United States of America, etc. Because of starvation, but then the king wanted to do something about it, and and it was very unpopular. The king made education compulsory for everyone. He forced people to send their children to school. This was very unpopular at the time because peasants, workers, they wanted to keep their children at home so they could work and contribute to the family economy.
So the key of success in Sweden was the education.
Education.
Number one.
Education, and that's these are reforms that were introduced in the 1834, I think. The first constitution, freedom of expression, came in 1734. We've had freedom of expression guaranteed in the Swedish constitution since 1734. It's the oldest in the world, I think. But then came, with the constitution 1809, came other rights, such as the right to education. And as we had very enlightened kings, enlightened rulers, they made sure to push through with these reforms. So about 50, 70 years after the introduction of making education compulsory, we saw the first big Swedish, the startups that later became big Swedish multinational companies.
So the industry sector was built on top of the education background that you already
Absolutely.
build it very strongly and very widely for everybody who lives in Sweden.
Absolutely.
From here started the industry.
And then it's like a puzzle, you know, social welfare. You have workers' rights. You treat it's the whole way. You treat your employees well, and they will become more productive. You know, you don't whip them like
Yes,
you know,
of course.
and you know, it's a win-win situation. And when workers are employed and make good salary, they pay taxes, and the taxes goes into the system for those, you know, to social welfare, to education, to health.
مملكة
People itself have, let's say, a drop point in any plans that the government makes, whether here or in any other countries. The questions here takes me to the people themselves, Your Excellency. I would like to know more about the Swedish people, their traditions, their customs, and the way they live their life, what they like. What is the things that they always like to transfer it from a generation to the other? Inherit from generation from another.
Most of our, you know, deep, strong traditions are pagan, as a matter of fact. They date back to the time when Sweden was populated by Vikings. Like Christmas. Christmas is in Egypt. Christmas is perceived as a Christian holiday. In Sweden, we know that it was not a Christian holiday. It's a Viking holiday, celebrating midwinter. You know, it's a dricka jul. You drank. People got drunk.
Different, of course. Here it's a religion thing.
The same with Easter. It's the celebration of spring. The midsummer, we celebrate the longest day of the day. These are all Viking traditions that have become Christianized, but are still, you know, very deep. Held traditions by Swedish people. Also, when we talk about Swedish people, we must also not forget that 20% of Sweden's population, which today is 10 million, to 2 million out of 10 million are born outside of Sweden, and not an unsubstantial part comes from this part of the world. You know? We have Palestinian Swedes, we have Iraqi Swedes, we have Syrian Swedes, there's some very successful Egyptian Swedes who have, you know, big companies run in Sweden. You know? So you know, Swedes, not all Swedes look like me. 20% look like you.
That's great to know, because this gets more information and more knowledge and something nice to have.
I know these days we celebrate Ramadan in Sweden.
Really?
Yeah, because about 10% of Sweden's population are of Muslim origin. So, you know, my wife is from Iran.
Oh, that's great to hear about. Your Excellency, if I talked about the Sweden industry, what distinguishes the Sweden industry? What can you tell us about this?
Swedish industry, I'll say like this. Sweden is, if you measure per capita, there's no country in the world with more multinational companies. You name the sector, be it mining, telecommunication, internet, technical topic, you'll have a Swedish company there. Be it energy, be it water, be it transportation. You know, we have Swedish companies that are not state-owned companies. These are private companies. This, as I said before, they were once. This is a point I used to make in Saudi Arabia when I served there. You know, they were small startups, individuals pushing ideas, innovating, and you know, they created what is today multinational companies that are much bigger than Sweden.
You know, Excellency, normally when I asked about the industry, I meant how could Sweden be able to achieve this position in industry. But yes, exactly, I was just going to say like this. You already answered, Your Excellency, this question in the beginning when you said we made the education is number one priorities. All the citizen has to go to the education system. They all have to be educated well also, because education is number one weapon or number one, let's say, the rocket for the moon, as we say.
And the culture that encourages you to to criticize, to think critically, to innovate, to try new ideas. It is, we celebrate failure in Sweden. To fail is not to fail. To fail is the first step towards success.
Your Excellency, Alfred Nobel is, let's say, is an iconic figure of the Sweden country. So can you share with us a story about Nobel Prize and...
Well, Alfred Nobel is one of many products that came out of this educational reform. And as you know, he invented inter alia dynamite. He was very active he was a multi-skilled person. He was active in many sectors and made a fortune, made a huge fortune. If you visit Baku today, you'll see many big oil fields, pumps that have been there ever since Baku, Azerbaijan, ever since the time of Alfred Nobel. Alfred Nobel was did not have a family. He died as a bachelor, but had a huge fortune, and that fortune he wanted to do something good with. So he instituted a foundation, the Nobel Foundation, which hands out the Nobel Prize.
And made his name alive until this moment.
Yeah, until this moment. And today, I think the original Nobel Prizes were in physics, in chemistry, in
peace.
Peace is one of the originals. But peace is not. He also was at the time when Alfred Nobel was active. Norway was part of Sweden. The Kingdom of Norway was part of the Kingdom of Sweden in a forced union. The union was dissolved in 1905 when Norwegians claimed independence. But Alfred Nobel, before 1905, made sure that the Norwegian part of the Kingdom of Sweden at the time got their own Nobel Prize. So that's why the Nobel Prize for Peace the Peace Prize is decided by the Norwegian Parliament.
1905.
1905, and while in the rest of the literature is also one of the original. But then we have economy, we have medicine. It's still delivered by Sweden, the Swedish king.
Your Excellency, my last question is going to be about the women. So can I know more about the role of women in Sweden, please?
The role of women is, we have. I would like to brag, if you allow me, to say that Sweden is a very equal country. We are very equal. Women and men are equal in every respect of the word. In certain professions, you'll have male dominance. In certain professions, you have female dominance, but they are equal, legally equal. Like in the military, for example, we have female soldiers, but they're not as prevalent as male soldiers. I was myself a soldier when I was a young man. Then when I did my military service, there were no women soldiers. They were the exception. Today, you have plenty of women. Foreign service. When I began the foreign service, it was heavily male-dominated profession to be a diplomat. Today, because women are more skilled, they're more innovative. Women have overtaken. It's like 60% or 70% of Swedish diplomats today are women.
Really?
And this goes from sector to sector. Women are outperforming men because we mature slower as men. I have to confess, I was very immature as a young man, and it took some time. I think women.
You're so humble, Your Excellency, about this.
Women have about 5. I'm a father of 3 daughters. I see they are mature. They are young, but they are mature. Women mature 5 years. They're always 5 years ahead of the curve compared to men. I'm an old man now, but I still have to play ice hockey. My wife always accuses me of being childish because I play ice hockey when I'm or skiing, but I love it, but it's considered immature in a way.
But I'm sure that women success is always changing and it's going to the top.
It's an ongoing situation. Like that it's a going situation involving the whole of society, where women and men and society adapts to make it more family friendly, for example, which allows, we have in Sweden 15 months of parental leave. When a child is born, the parents have 15 months to take care of the child, that they can spread out time-wise. We have childcare, which is very cheap. One of many. You pay taxes, you get it back through childcare. All my 3 kids have gone through the childcare, which has allowed my wife to work.
To achieve her career.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, my wife holds a much more senior position than I am. I'm the ambassador of Sweden. But what is an ambassador? Huh? I can't say now, but she works for a big Swedish company, private sector. She makes decisions that have consequences far beyond what my decisions
are. Swedish women achievement is very good and very high, and they are on to it.
My foreign minister is a woman.
Your Excellency, thank you so much for having us with you today, and please allow me to have another interview to talk about the relations between Egypt and Sweden, but in another episode.
That would be my pleasure. I would thoroughly enjoy a continuation of our conversation. Thank you very much.
ثانك يو سير. وبكده مشاهدينا في كل مكان انتهى لقائنا مع سعادة السفير داغ يولين دامفيلد سفير مملكة السويد لدى جمهورية مصر العربية. في هذه الحلقة تكلمنا عن المحطات الدبلوماسية الخاصة بسعادة السفير، وأيضا تحدثنا عن عادات وتقاليد الشعب السويدي. بتمنى أشوفكم في حلقة قادمة إن شاء الله، وإلى اللقاء.